Good morning, Kansas City. Thank you for tuning in to our first virtual Restore KC public program. My name is Paul Gutierrez, Director of Programs and Events for the Kansas City Museum. We're working really hard to reopen the museum this fall as a new museum of Kansas City history and culture heritage. In the meantime, we'll continue with virtual programs and events. And if the weather warms up here soon, my goal is to activate the lawn again with outdoor safe distance concerts and other events. It's my honor and pleasure, as always, to introduce you to our friend and neighbor of the museum, Nicole.
Hello.
Good morning, Nicole. How are you?
I'm doing good, Paul. How are you?
Good. Happy first day of spring.
I know. What an amazing day.
What a year, right? Here we are, March again.
I know. It feels amazing that it's spring again. We made it through.
Nicole, for those people that might not know you, can you give them a brief introduction before you present your program? And also, I'll remind our audience that this program is being recorded, and we have the right to remove any comments that we seem inappropriate. And also, if you missed this show, thank you to One Kansas City Radio. It will be available on a podcast.
Amazing. So my name's Nicole. I am an artist and a writer living here in Kansas City. I've been here for about a decade now. And recently I've been working on this big affirmation project, which is what I am here today to talk to you about.
Awesome. Also, audience, if you have any questions for Nicole, just drop them in the box below. And at the end, we'll come back together and we'll do some Q&A. So Nicole, take it away.
Amazing. So I have put together a little presentation that I am going to give to you right now. So I am going to be telling you about this project that I've been doing for about the last 2 years now. I'm going to telling you a little story about how I put up 600 billboards around the country to help save lives. But before I tell you that story, there is another story that I need to tell you, and that's my story. So here's where it all starts. I was born in the Midwest. I was originally born in Iowa. And growing up, I was a joyful, creative little kid. And this guy on the right, he's my dad. He was my best friend. And he taught me some of the most valuable lessons about how to use my words, how to be compassionate and be creative. But he also showed me a lot about acceptance and about what humanity can look like. Here I am when I was 17. In this picture, I am a senior in high school. I am standing in my best friend's front yard after dropping her off after a day of classes. I am driving my first car, which is a red Kia Rio. But truthfully, in this picture, I feel so scared and so lost, kind of, because I only have a few months left of high school. And I have no idea what I want to do with the rest of my life. And it seems like all my friends have all these fancy plans, but I don't know what I want to do. But what I didn't know when this photo was taken was that in just a few days, my life was going to change forever. I woke up on the morning of October 2nd, 2010, to my mom sitting next to me, watching me sleep and crying. On that morning of October 2nd, 2010, she told me that my father had committed suicide. And in that moment, my entire world stopped and it felt like it shattered. He had been somebody who had struggled with addiction and mental illness and unresolved childhood trauma in the past. And I was a very big and present part of his healing process. I was there every step of the way for all of that. I was at every AA meeting, in every rehab program, visited every hospital. And so when we lost him, it felt so horrible because I understood the journey and I understood all of it. And I can remember on that day, October 2nd, I was laying in my room, crying, shaking, like slamming my fists into my mattress because I was so sad and I didn't know if I was going to be able to go on. And then all of a sudden, this moment of calm washes over me. And this thought pops into my head. And that thought says, what if you tried to create something beautiful out of this pain? And what if that's the only chance that you have at surviving and healing? So that's what I tried to do. I had always been somebody who was really interested in art, but after I lost my dad, I completely threw myself into my art practice. And I started doing this thing where I would write in my journal every single night. I would write all of these things that I wish that somebody was saying to me. I was writing all of these statements and words and thoughts that I needed to hear to help me get through what I was experiencing. And it made me feel better. It was almost like I was self-soothing with my writing. And then I started writing those words or those quotes or those statements on the walls of my bedroom. And my mom was like not very excited about this idea at first. She was like, Nicole, what are you doing to your bedroom? But once she saw how much it helped me to like pour my heart out on these walls, she became really supportive. And there was something so amazing and healing for me about writing these words that I needed to hear and then putting them somewhere bigger that I could see every single day. And I had this thought. I was like, I wonder if this helps me, if it could help other people. And I wondered what would happen if I started putting these words in public places. So for the rest of my senior year of high school, you could find me every single weekend driving around in my little red car with my best friend Teresa with this like plastic Walmart bag full of spray paint. And we would find all of these abandoned buildings and warehouses and walls, and I would go and graffiti and paint these words that I was writing in my journal and these ideas that I was writing in my journal that I needed to hear, the things that I needed to say to help me heal. And when I was doing this, I hoped that maybe somebody someday would find them and maybe that it would mean to them what it meant to me. And now I can see that this is absolutely where the work that I'm doing now got its start. But when I look at this picture of myself, I just feel so compassionate because this version of me was trying her hardest to heal from one of the hardest days of her life. So I would go on to graduate from high school, and I ended up coming to Kansas City to attend the Kansas City Art Institute, which is how I'm here today. And it was here in Kansas City, attending college for the first time, that I learned about another type of heartbreak that exists in this world. And that is the heartbreak that you experience when you're 18 and you're dating somebody for the first time and you swear that they're your soulmate. And then all of a sudden they cheat on you and break your heart and you're absolutely devastated. And I feel like so many people have been through this exact thing, and everyone knows what it's like to get your heart broken for the first time. But at 18, I was absolutely devastated by this breakup. And I remember laying in my dorm room, shaking, crying, being so upset about this. And then all of a sudden, this moment of calm comes over me. And it feels like that same moment of calm that I felt the day that my dad died. And that thought pops into my head again. That thought that maybe I should try to create something beautiful from the pain. And so that's what I tried to do again. That night, I thought of this quote that somebody had told me recently. And that quote said, sometimes the best revenge you can ever get on someone who broke your heart is to chase the life of your dreams and show that person that they're not one of your dreams anymore. And now, sitting here today, I am 28 years old. And when I hear that quote, I am not that inspired by it. And I honestly just don't know how I feel about it. But when I was 18 years old, this quote like inspired me and fired me up. And I was like, yes, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to create beauty. And so I tried. I learned how to sew. I learned how to screen print. I started my first Etsy shop. I even got a job at the local t-shirt shop so I could learn about how to have a clothing business and actually sell clothes in real life. And when it came time to put a name to this like crazy revenge clothing line that I had started, I wanted to create a name that was relevant to the reason why I started this clothing line. And I wanted to choose something that only my ex-boyfriend would understand. And so we used to do this thing where after we had sex, we would eat ice cream. And he always told me that sex and ice cream was our thing, that I could never have it with anybody else and that I could never have it for myself. And so when it came time to put a name to my like clothing line, I thought that it felt really empowering to name the clothing line Sex and Ice Cream as a way to show him that it could be my thing and I could create it to be anything that I wanted. And again, 28-year-old Nicole Me is like, not sure how she feels about this. It feels kind of sassy and revengey and petty, but at 18, this felt so empowering. And it kind of felt like for the first time, I was understanding my voice and understanding what it meant to be brave. I spent the next 4 years of college working endlessly at my clothing line. And I was still writing in my journal. I was still writing all of these things that I needed to hear for myself in my journal every night. All of these things that I wish somebody was saying to me. Then I started printing those words or those ideas or those doodles or those thoughts on fabric, and I would make clothes out of them. And the craziest things started happening. People from all over the place started telling me that these items really meant something to them because they made them feel really seen and validated and connected because they were going through similar things in their life. And I realized that I wanted to do more. I wanted to focus more on this idea of connectivity through visual art. And so I started making stickers, a whole lot of stickers. These stickers said all of these different things that I currently needed to be reminded of or needed to hear in my life. And I would leave them everywhere. I would like put them on park benches. I would put them on the wall of a Starbucks drive-thru. I would give them to strangers, leave them places. I would put them everywhere. And I realized I wanted to do more even yet. I realized I wanted to open an actual store. And so after I graduated at age 22, I rented this little storefront down in the crossroads in Kansas City, and I painted the walls all of these really happy colors. And I wanted to create a place where people could come in and find things that meant something to them, where they could find things that made them feel like they weren't alone in whatever they were going through. And in the end, it turned out exactly the way that I always dreamt that it would. And on the opening night, there was this huge line of people that went down the street. And hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people came through, and I sold out of almost every product that I had. And I can remember feeling so proud because it represented so much. It represented an 18-year-old girl who chose to empower herself and try to create something big out of something bad. The craziest things started happening around this time. The world started to catch on to my story, and I realized people connected with the reason why I started my company. Because I realized everyone knows what it feels like to be heartbroken. Everybody knows what it feels like to suffer. And everyone wants to believe in the idea of creating beauty out of pain. And I kept coming back to this idea that had found me when I was 17, crying in my room after I lost my dad. The idea of being strong enough to find the good in the bad. That's the idea that had gotten me here. And I realized I wanted to do more. I started experimenting with new ways to integrate these words, these statements, these paragraphs I was writing for myself and integrate them into the world or into the lives of people. I started opening up new stores in new cities. I painted these stores all different colors. I hired more employees, designed more things, and things kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And they started moving faster and faster and faster. And then one day I woke up and everything stopped. And I realized that I wasn't happy anymore. And I realized that I had kind of lost myself. And I realized that the world tells you that success and empowerment and power in general has to look a certain type of way. They tell you that you have to make a lot of money and you have to have a lot of things, a lot of clothes, a lot of Instagram followers, a lot of friends, a lot of people. And they tell you if you have all of those things, then you'll feel powerful and happy and everything will be perfect. But I realized that that's not true. And I realized that I had started this clothing line because I was 18 years old and I was mad at my boyfriend and I wanted to get revenge. But now at this point in my life, I was 25 and my life was different and I really wasn't angry anymore. And I knew what I had to do. I came back to that idea that had found me at all of my lowest moments. Be strong enough to find the good in the bad. And I realized that this was another situation where I got to practice that. And I realized that my life was teaching me another lesson that I needed to learn to use my voice to talk about. And so I started over. I closed all my stores. I deleted Instagram. I let go of everything and I just started over. I traveled and I visited all of these happy, colorful, beautiful places that I had always wanted to go see, but I never had the time to visit. And while I was there at these beautiful places, I started thinking about how everyone on this planet deserves beautiful things. Everyone on this planet deserves a beautiful life. And also everybody needs to be reminded of the fact that they're capable of creating beauty out of their pain. And while I was in these beautiful places, I finally find the time to heal. And I finally found the time to digest what the last decade of my life had been like. And I finally got to feel all of the things that I had been too distracted, too busy, too overwhelmed to feel. Around this time, I met a guy who would later go on to become my husband, but this is the first relationship in my life where the person I was with actually treated me like a human being. And I realized that one of the most important parts about loving yourself is allowing yourself to be loved in a healthy way. I started writing in my journal again, just for myself, being all of the things that I needed to hear. And I thought about 17-year-old Nicole driving around her hometown with that plastic bag full of spray paint, diving heart first into the world, just trying to heal, trying to do something that felt important in the face of her grief. And I wished her well, and I made peace with her. And I thought about my dad, everything that he had taught me about acceptance and about the beauty of humanity and what resilience and grace looks like. And I wished him well, and then I sent him love. I started writing affirmations around this time. These statements that make you feel stronger from the inside out. I was just writing all of these things that I needed to be reminded of at this point in my life. And then I printed them on a sticker, another sticker to share with the world. I gave them to friends and then friends of friends and then friends and friends and friends. And I left them all over the place. And people started telling me that these things helped them with whatever they were going through. And it was here at this moment that I learned something about love. I learned that when you love more, you heal more. And when you heal more, you love more. When you love other people more, they're able to heal. And then when they heal, they're able to love other people more. And that's when everything gets really, really interesting. In June of 2019, I saved all my paychecks from the yoga teaching job I was currently at, and I rented a billboard on the side of the interstate downtown Kansas City. On the billboard, I wrote these statements that I had been thinking about, that I had been writing for myself. And these statements represented things that I needed to hear. They represented things that I wanted to tell the people in my life who were hurting. They represented things I wanted to tell anyone who was hurting. They represented things that I wanted and wished that I could have told my dad. I didn't tell anyone I was doing this. I did it anonymously, and in fact, it was up for over a week, and I just drove by it every day. And that was enough. And for the first time, it felt like I was using my voice in the realest way that I knew how. Eventually, I shared the photo with a few close friends and family members, and I woke up the next day to see that the image had gone viral on the internet. And this thing that had been my little secret now had been viewed by millions and millions of people. And I got the chance to share the story behind why I did what I did with the world. And advertising companies from all over heard the story and wanted to help. So they gave me the opportunity to create new affirmations and to put them on new places in cities that I've not even been to before. I partnered with mental health advocates from small towns around this country, and together we put up billboards in communities that needed extra support and compassion. In September, I put up over 400 billboards around the country to support Suicide Awareness Month. And I took the entire month off of my yoga teaching job, and I got into my little red car with my husband, and I drove and I tried to see as many of these billboards as I could. And I stood in front of them and I looked up at them and I tried to understand what it all meant, because it finally felt like I had gotten something right. And I was finally able to understand that every heartbreak, every loss, every grieving period, every hard day, and every trauma had purpose, because it had gotten me right here. And because it had taught me how to create beauty out of things that were painful. And because it showed me how to use my voice in the realest way that I knew how. And that felt really important. So I'm still working on this project full-time now, and I'm constantly thinking about new and unique ways that we can integrate anonymous compassion in our communities to offer support and accessible love for people in our neighborhoods, in our families, in our circles that might need it. I recently rented an airplane and pulled an affirmation across the sky, and that felt really, really, really cool. I also started making affirmation postcards about a year ago. Every month, I design a postcard and I write the things that I need to hear that month. And it's always something different. But I always try to speak from my heart and try to reach people and give them the compassion that they deserve. I built a website where people can put in their names and their addresses to sign up for these postcards, or they can also submit the names and addresses of people that they know who they want to receive them. And on the first month that I sent these out, I had 250 people who put their names in. And now I have over 3,000 postcards that I send out every single month. And I sit at my dining room table every month and I have my pack of Sharpies and I hand address every single one. And I know that there are so many better ways to get those addresses on those postcards, but I don't care because it feels important and real and raw and honest to sit there and pour love into every single postcard. And I send them to countries and continents around the world that I've never even been to. And it makes me feel so happy because it makes me feel the way that the billboards did. It makes me feel the way that the stickers did. It makes me feel the way that my clothing line did. It makes me feel the way that graffitiing on abandoned buildings in high school did. It makes me feel like I'm using my voice in the realest way that I know how. And that feels really important. I recently created a card with Hallmark. It's going to be sold in every major drugstore around the world. And I don't really have words to tell you how much that means to me yet, but I can promise you that it means a whole lot. I have really big dreams for this project. I would love to put a billboard in Times Square and go there and stand in front of it and look at it. I would also love to rent a mile of the highway in the desert and put up like 20 billboards so people could travel and drive and experience them in that way. Or maybe someday I just want to write a book and see what it feels like to offer support and to use my voice in that way. So I told you a story of how I put up 600 billboards around the country to help save lives. But I don't really think that that was the whole story that I told you. I kind of think that it started of the story of how a breakup inspired me to chase my dreams, but that wasn't really the whole story either. It kind of turned into a story about how I walked away from success to heal myself. But there was still more to the story. I think that the story that I told you was about how healing myself allowed me to heal other people. But I really think it was about how I learned to create beauty out of the hard parts of my life, and then how I shared that beauty with the world. So thank you. That was my presentation. And thank you for listening.
Nicole, thank you so much for sharing your story. I did tear up a little bit here listening to you.
That means so much.
I love how you spoke, very passionate. And I think for the Kansas City Museum, that's one of our goals. How do we help individuals tell those untold stories? Mm-hmm. And that makes Kansas City a rich fabric of artists and designers and makers. I mean, Sex and Ice Cream, I bought some of your products. I have them. And the story of how you created Sex and Ice Cream is really neat and wonderful. So thank you so much. And I hope our audience enjoyed hearing your question. We had some comments come in. And Lisa said that she was there on the opening night and she misses your store.
Oh, that's so nice.
Great. A couple of questions, Nicole, that came in. Where are your billboards located?
Well, there's 3 currently up in Kansas City. We have one that is at 85th and Warnall. We have one that is over Town Topic down in the Crossroads, and we have one that's up in the plaza on Ward Parkway, just in a storefront.
Neat. So people can still drive by and
yes.
Perfect. What inspires you to choose those words of affirmation on these billboards?
Every time I sit down to create a billboard, I always try to, really think about the words that I need to hear. That is my most honest description of my creative process. I just always try to write things that I need to hear, and I let that determine what I put on those billboards and when.
What motivates you to keep going forward?
Could you repeat that?
Sure. What motivates you or drives you to continue keeping forward?
I would say the thing that motivates me is that I deeply care about people, and I just want to keep showing up to offer compassion to people who might not have a lot of it in their lives. And so that is always the driving force. But also, this project helps me survive too. And it's gotten me through some of the darkest days of the last year. And for that reason, like, I need to keep doing this work because it saves my life every day.
With everything going on that happened last year, do you feel it has changed you in some way or fashion?
Yes, I think that with everything that happened last year, I was able to really focus on the good and to put everything into this project. And through that, it was just a continued practice of creating beauty out of hard times. And we got to do it on a collective scale. And I felt I felt like it was a privilege to put up billboards during a time when everyone was kind of going through the same thing. And it just it gave me a lot of resilience and a lot of purpose in the pain.
We just got a comment from Dee saying, enjoying this so much. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you, Dee.
um, Question. I love hand dressing and those postcards that you're doing on your affirmation project. How many did you send last year?
Last year in 2020, I sent out 20,000 of them total.
And who helps you fund that or pay for that? Because I know postage is not cheap.
Postage is probably the most expensive part. Honestly, I have a few platforms that people donate on, and the majority of this is funded by people who donate, but also anytime I get a paycheck or a commission, I just try to put as much of my own money into it as I can too.
So what are those websites that people can go and support and contribute to your project?
My main website that you can find everything at is myaffirmationproject.com. On that website, you have the opportunity to sign up to receive these postcards. And there's also a donate tab where you can go and see some of the different options for offering support financially to this project.
Great. We do have a question that came in. Have you considered working with youth to help install these affirmations?
Yes, there have been quite a few groups that I've partnered with, and working with different groups to put them up, either with the groups or in the environment that those groups exist in. And I'm always open to do more. It's very exciting.
So far, what have you learned from this project?
The thing that I've learned is that we are all so much more similar than we even recognize, and that we all just want to be connected and to know that we're not alone. And I think that that is the thing that can offer the most strength and support for so many people. And I'm constantly reminded of the true power of connectivity. And I'm just learning more about that every day.
I love this. I mean, when we launched this Restore KC series for the museum, this exactly was our goal: to connect, process, and heal. And you sharing your journey and your story perfectly aligned with what we launched last year in summer of 2020, because we wanted to still do some public programs and events, but everything shifted, right? Everything became virtual, and this whole technology, which I'm still learning. So that was kind of, how do we stay relevant to what's happening in our current times? And this is just one example of what individuals can hope to see once the museum reopens, what kinds of programs we're going to do, and what kind of event, and who we're going to highlight. So this is perfect example of the future of the Kansas City Museum. So thank you for being part of it.
Of course, thank you.
One final question. If anybody else has any questions, just drop them in and I'll ask Nicole. What is your hope for 2021?
I have a lot of hopes. I just want to figure out new and creative ways to get these messages or just compassion in general into our community and maybe even the larger scale community. And I'm just going to begin my adventure in going to college for psychology. So I hope to study and learn more about how to support people in ways that really, really make an impact. So those are my visions and my hopes for 2021.
When do you hope to start your college journey?
April 12th. So soon.
That's amazing. Let me check if there any other questions that came in. Give me one moment. None so far. I will tell our audience that we might be working on a special project here with Nicole on a billboard somewhere. That's all. I'll tune in and let you know, but we're working on something special for
Yay!
Come and join and read those words of affirmation, which are really important for in this current time.
Yes, yes.
Nicole, any final thoughts or comments that you want to let our audience know?
Just thank you, Paul, for having me. Thank you for anyone who's listening, and I just hope you have a great day today and feel happy.
Thank you so much, Nicole. And I should have worn my Sex and Ice Cream shirt. It's the one with the lipstick and the white one with fun patterns. So
I love it.
It's tucked away in my closet. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank
I appreciate you. As a reminder, this program will live on our Facebook page, also on our website at kansascitymuseum.org. That's kansascitymuseum.org. And thank you to One Kansas City Radio. This program will also be available in a podcast. The goal is to continue with these Restore KC public programs twice a month until we meet in person, hopefully this fall at the museum. Stay tuned to what's happening with our museum project and renovations by visiting makingamuseumkc.org. That's makingamuseumkc.org. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you. Please be safe out there. Enjoy the sun, and please be kind to one another. Have a good weekend.